All right, good afternoon. Today we are going to be looking at motivation in sports and the effects the psychological part of motivation has on athletes. I've looked at and am using a research study called Motivation Profiles Perceived Motivational Climate, Coping Perceptions, and Anxiety Among Elite Young Ice Hockey Players throughout this presentation. Aimed to investigate the relationships between sports motivation and several sports psychological variables. Looking at the study, I found there were a few ideas that they were looking at and trying to answer. How do psychological variables affect motivation in sports? 4 profiles of individual sport motivation, and the definition of amotivation and how to recognize it and address overall sports performance, self-confidence, and coping skills. There are 3 psychological variables that the researchers were looking at. What is the perceived motivational climate? How do athletes cope? And competitive anxiety. Perceived motivational climate is in every individual athlete. It is how they look at the sport and its social environment. For example, if an athlete is getting bullied on a team by their teammates, they might perceive the environment of the sport to be hostile, and the individual might not want to play the sport anymore. An example of good motivational climate would be when coaches focus on effort and improvement over winning, which in turn will make the athlete want to come back and play. Athletes cope in a few different ways. Mental toughness or hardiness is a personality trait. It is how an athlete deals with the different stressors or challenges they face. Each individual athlete can increase their mental toughness and hardiness by participating in practices such as goal setting or planning, active problem solving, which is effectively solving problems as they arise, and emotion-focused strategies. For example, breath work, positive self-talk, and emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is how an individual controls their own emotions. An example, emotional regulation would be a goalie in hockey. If they get scored on, they have to be able to control their emotions and be ready for the next shot. There are 3 different types of anxiety. Cognitive anxiety is all about thinking. Worrying, fear, and pessimistic thinking are all forms of cognitive anxiety. Somatic anxiety is the physical aspect. Sweating, faster heart rate, tense muscles, shaking, and nausea are all aspects of somatic anxiety. Self-confidence deals with an individual's confidence in their own capacity to carry out specific activities. During the research team found there were 4 different categories these athletes would fall under. Demotivation, which the athlete has a lack in motivation altogether. Intrinsic dominant, which the athlete is driven by internal motivations like enjoyment and personal growth. Highly motivated, which these athletes are motivated by both personal enjoyment and rewards. And struggling. These athletes are motivated but are experiencing challenges. An example of an athlete that is struggling would be a top forward in hockey that is not scoring for the first 5 games, which brings down their confidence. And once he scores their goal, they are able to restore their confidence and motivation. A term that is used a lot in the study was amotivation. Amotivation in sports occurs when an athlete lacks the intention to engage in their sport. They often feel disconnected and can't see the value in participating. This goes beyond simply being unmotivated. It reflects the sense of helplessness or frustration. Athletes might feel they lack the skills to succeed, they don't enjoy the activity, or they fail to see how their efforts are meaningful. For example, an athlete experiencing amotivation might attend practices out of habit, but they lack the focus, energy, and drive to improve. This can be a result of factors like external pressures, burnout, or poor fit between personal goals and team culture. A research method that was used in the study was quantitative non-experimental method, a questionnaire. A quantitative non-experimental method is used mainly in bigger groups, such as surveys. It is focused on getting more data than trying to get detailed and in-depth data. There are 4 questionnaires the athletes were asked to complete. The first questionnaire is called the Sports Motivation Scale. This measures the motivation of athletes in sports. It taps into the 3 motivation scale, which is intrinsic, extrinsic, and amotivation. The second questionnaire was the Perceived Motivational Climate in Sports questionnaire. This is a tool used to assess the perceived motivational climate within a sports environment. It assesses an individual's perceived motivation in their own sporting context. The third questionnaire used was the Athletic Coping Skills Inventory. This was used to assess hockey players' psychological coping strategies. The last questionnaire used was the Competitive State Anxiety Inventory. This was used to measure the anxiety levels of the athletes. The study highlights the importance of adopting a person-centered approach when assessing motivation in athletes. By recognizing the motivation is not one size fits all. The research identifies 4 distinct motivation profiles, each with unique combinations of intrinsic, extrinsic, and amotivation factors. This understanding allows for more tailored interventions, as different motivational profiles can significantly impact on athletes' coping skills. Specifically, athletes with higher intrinsic motivation tend to exhibit better coping abilities, while those with higher levels of amotivation might struggle with the handling stress and adversity. The findings show the need for coaches and practitioners to consider individual motivational factors when developing strategies to enhance athletes' psychological resilience and performance. All research studies have inherent limitations, and this study is no exception. One key limitation is its cross-sectional design, which provides only a snapshot of the data at a single point in time, limiting the ability to draw conclusions about causal relationships or trends over time. Additionally, the involvement of multiple teams may have introduced variations in team culture, which could have influenced the outcome and added complexity to the interpretation of the results. Another limitation is the use of predefined questions. The data collection, which, while structured, may not have fully captured the complexity of the subject's matter. These factors must be considered when interpreting the findings and their broader applicability. Identifying your motivation type can provide valuable insight into the most effective coping strategies for enhancing your leisure life. By understanding what drives you, tailored coaching can help you build confidence and develop personal approaches to making the most of your free time. Additionally, recognizing your motivation style can assist in reducing anxiety, allow you to engage in leisure activities with a greater sense of ease and enjoyment. This self-awareness not only supports personal growth, but also fosters a more fulfilling and balanced lifestyle. By applying these insights, practitioners can design programs that not only enhance motivation, but also reduce stress, leading to more fulfilling, enjoyable leisure studies. This approach contributes to happier participants and greater program success. To achieve this, practitioners should create an environment that fosters personal satisfaction, adjusting their coaching style to align with each athlete's unique motivation level. Building strong, individualized relationships with athletes is essential, as it enables coaches to better understand each player's preferences, concerns, goals, ultimately supporting their growth and engagement. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you guys have a great afternoon.